We don't know what situation we're talking about. So I'm going to address a situation where it's okay to raise your voice, which is during the khutbah. As you know, the khutbah is a speech. And the speech has rules and regulations. And we learn this skill or this method from the Prophet ﷺ, who ﷺ mastered every skill. So Allah taught him how to give the khutbah. And whenever he gives the khutbah, you'll not get bored. You know, he will raise his voice when he is warning people. As he said, I'm a warner and someone of glad tidings. If you see your little brother going and he's going to put his hand on a hot oven, you're going to scream. And not because you want to insult him or scold him, it's because you are worried about him. And that's what the Prophet did. Anytime he would speak about something of importance, that he thinks that people are in great danger, and he is a warner, as we said, he will raise his voice and his face will turn red. It's not because he's angry at the people or screaming at them, because he loved them so much, and he's trying to lead them to the right path. So we mimic that. I mean, when I give the khutbah, raising the voice in some time. If the voice is raised all the time, however, it's bad. You know, anyone who will tell you about the rules of speech, you can't just raise your voice all the time. But if it is the interaction we're talking about, then it's a very unfortunate. As a matter of fact, this is what I was really talking about the akhlaq. This is the, you know, many times we look at the imam or the khatib or so as the example of Islam. No, he is example of himself. Islam is exemplified in the character of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ never raised his voice, you know, to yell at people or any of that. On the contrary, we find him at a time where he need to yell, like the guy when he came and urinated in the corner of the masjid. He told people to stop, come down, and he called the guy and whispered to him. So by no means it's the right character. Exactly. I know I give link. I'm gonna get in trouble.
Why do women and men have to be separated in the masjid? Sister Wafa and Brother Sarfraz, you have 2 minutes.
Please understand one thing. There's a basic rule in Islam. It's not about masjid. It's in general. Islam is forbidding a common interaction between a man and a woman unless there's a relationship. You can have a mahram, you cannot have a mahram. That is the basic rule. And you can criticize it, but you really have to get it what is said in Hadith. Rasulullah has mentioned, a woman's prayer in her home is better than praying at masjid. That's from Bukhari. And at another point, it is mentioned by Ibn Umar that Rasulullah said, allow women to go to the mosque at night. So it is not only about masjid. And whenever we question why this is this way, there's a natural attraction between men and women. And Allah does not want that at a particular place where you really want to go for one particular reason. Why is so? You know, that's, of course, you have the answer. There is an attraction, and that should not be continued at a place of worship.
From my understanding, there is no one ruling that says that women and men have to be completely separated in the masjid, meaning hidden away or tucked away. All masajid should, subhanAllah, in the Prophet's time, women were at the masjid, and they were there listening to the talks that were being given. So I think sometimes we here in the States, and in some places, I know in Europe, a lot of places in Europe don't even accommodate women and give them a place to pray. And in some places in the Middle East, alhamdulillah, it's coming around very nicely. Every place I've been, there's been a place for women to pray. So there is nothing about why men and women have to be separated. There is no black and white on this one. Women requested to pray behind men, because let's face the facts. How many can concentrate when someone, you know, I'm just going to leave it at that. So there is no one thing that says that, but the brother is correct in that there is a certain adab, there's a comfort level that we all have, and we do have that separation, not because women are being looked down upon, but because it's simply a comfort level. And we need to, when we present that to non-Muslims, it's always looked at as Muslim women are being put down, and that's why you have to pray behind the men. And I explained to them that's not the case. It's truly a comfort level and a matter of being able to concentrate on your salah. And sometimes when you throw a little bit of humor in there as to the explanation of salah and concentration in salah, they understand completely and they support the idea.
One thing I want to say is that you can text your questions to 954-536-7554. But we already have 33 questions, so we will only take those questions that you just text me if we have time. Otherwise, we won't. Third question is, why am I not allowed to date? And I'm going to ask that from Brother Hassan and Sister Wafa. They have 5 minutes each. Please stay quiet. This is a serious question.
Yes, it is a very serious question. Okay, so basically my perspective on dating is probably that most likely if you're casually dating and you have no intention of being married to that individual, you probably shouldn't be doing it because you're really playing a dangerous game by trying to, I was sitting with my teacher and he had mentioned that when all of these relationships happen, obviously they happen with a glance first. And so when you start looking at someone, you know, things, obviously you're attracted to that person, you want to talk to them, you want to move forward, you want to get closer to them. And one thing usually does lead to another. So it can be dangerous, and if you have no intention of getting married, it's probably not a very good idea. However, I believe when you do have the intention of getting married, it's starting to become harder because, you know, I mean, arranged marriages aren't a predominant thing anymore. And so you do have to talk to the other, you know, the opposite sex to find out if they have the same qualities that you want in an individual and if you are compatible. So within the limits of an Islamic guidelines of hanging out or spending time in a public place and with supervision, I think that, you know, there's nothing wrong with talking to somebody to try to figure out if you two are indeed compatible or not.
And what Brother Hassan said, there's a clear distinction. If you're interested in marriage, we have guidelines for how we do that. But I want to take a step back on why do we not date. And the very pure and simple explanation is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set these parameters for us to protect our hearts. And the whole concept of dating, and I'm a complete nerd, I love to look at the history of where did these things start from? And where did the whole concept of dating come from? This is something that's a very modern concept. I look at Muslim teenagers, and I don't know why it's not explained to them in a way where they can understand it and love the reason why. The reason why we don't date, we don't put ourselves by ourselves with someone of the opposite gender, is to protect us. I get the thing of, I just want to talk. And you know, some of the newer ones, we're just having an Islamically intellectual conversation. Seriously, get over yourself. No one's buying it, except for maybe the person you're talking to right now. But the only problem with that is Allah is protecting even our hearts. Because the moment that I see somebody, what do they say? If you see something that's pleasing to your eyes, you do what? Lower your gaze. The first look is halal. After that, cut it off. Because why? Because Allah's protecting our hearts. When your heart is swayed, you've just opened the door for other things to start falling into place and happening. And we cut it off right there by being modest in our behavior. And the reason why we don't date and we don't put ourselves in the situation where I'm alone with another person of the opposite gender, if they are not related to me in the sense of my brother, my father, my uncle, someone who is my mahram, who is not mahram. There's a problem there because so many other things can happen. And there are 4 steps to where, I wish I brought this with me, but there, in a book that we have on spirituality, the Imam was saying there are 4 steps to committing a sin, or right before we commit a sin. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put it in us to know when something's wrong and to tell ourselves when to stop it. When you date, it doesn't stop there. Sisters, if you hear a brother that says, yeah, let's go out, or a guy from school approaches you, this is not about love. It's not about that whole romantic whirlwind thing. It's not that. So please don't let anybody ever let you think that that's the case. Brothers, some of you in the high school, I really would love to just chat with you because your behavior at times does not lend to supporting us as sisters. The thing that irks me the most is when I have a girl come up to me and go, "Oh, you're Muslim? My boyfriend's Muslim." That's awesome. Dating is not there just for people to say nice things to each other. Dating is there for an ultimate ending. And we have to protect our hearts, and we have to protect our bodies, because I'm telling you, a lot of times, teenagers these days will look at another person and go, "You're still a virgin? What's wrong with you?" I'm being straight up parents. I'm sorry if I'm offending you, but your kids are seeing this and far worse. And there's a lot of pressure that's on them. And I'm going to say this to the brothers and the sisters. Protect yourselves. Do not get to that point. Because wallahi, and I say this not loosely, you will regret it. Those things follow you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects us from not making those things public, but those things will follow you. It will bother you to your core that you let yourself go to that point. Especially if it goes to the point of you losing your virginity. One of the most precious things that you can keep until you find the right person who deserves that virginity. So dating is not one of those, "Hey, I just want to talk." It's not that. If anybody tells you that, they're lying. Okay? So I'm putting it out there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects us. He's protecting our hearts. He's protecting us emotionally. He's protecting us spiritually. He's protecting us physically. And when we look at the fact that Allah is doing this for us because He loves us, and we understand it, then we follow it. It's easier to follow, and it's easier to say no. And it's easier to take that alternate lifestyle and go, "I'm going to protect myself and save myself for the right person." And I'm speaking to the teenagers right now. Yes, I have a Facebook account. Because I'm like, "You're on Facebook? Aren't you a dinosaur? You have Facebook?" Yes, I have a Facebook account. And I can tell you that a lot of the kids who wrote to me, who I went to high school with, have written to me and said, "We have so many regrets from the way that we conducted our lives. And I see how your life has turned out, and I wish I could have done that." These are non-Muslims. And just let me take another step back. Let's look at the non-Muslims who engage in dating. They are some of the most jaded human beings I have ever met in my life. Because they've been hurt so many times that they lose faith in the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly has created this other person for you. That special person that knows you and loves you and lives with you. That's the most beautiful love. And that's what we want to see. Not wasting our time with these losers who just want something in the end that you should not be giving to begin with. So I hope, inshallah, I answered that question appropriately.
I'm just glad I'm not the one who's answering these questions. Can I marry someone who's not a Muslim? Brother Hassan and Brother Rami, 3 minutes each.
Okay, so when I first started doing research on this question, I was obviously under the impression that what I had been taught was that Muslim men can marry a Muslim woman, a Christian woman, or a Jewish woman. Muslim women can only marry a Muslim man. And so when I sat down and I discussed this with my teacher, we had come to the conclusion that this is true, and so obviously the first thing is, why can Muslim women only marry Muslim men? Well, the thing is that most times the children are going to follow in the husband or the father's footsteps. And so if this is the case, if you Muslim women marry a Christian or a Jew, most likely the kids are going to follow in suit, and you are going to lose your Muslim family. Now, as far as the men go, which this was news to me, was that most scholars apparently say that, yes, while this is acceptable, Muslim men should still, I mean, obviously, logically, we should still marry Muslim women, but it's actually, you really should not. It's like almost highly prohibited to go ahead and marry these, Christians or Jews, because, I mean, most of the time, at least in my family, I was a prime example. We spent a lot more time with my mom than my father, because my dad went to work, and so my mom had a lot more influence in our beliefs. And with that being the case, I can understand why, if your mother is not a Muslim, then most likely you are going to be influenced in a Christian way or a Jewish way. And furthermore, my teacher had told me a story about when he was in Iraq, how the scholar there asked if a Muslim man had also asked this question. And he said, he responded, if you don't marry the Muslim women, then who is going to marry the Muslim women? So, us men, we need to consider what we're doing. Even if we are allowed to marry a Christian or a Jew, we should understand that if we don't marry the Muslim women, then who is? And most likely we will lose our, Islam and our religion, our faith, our community, if we start to do stuff like that.
So the basic idea is when you want to have kids, is you want to have Muslim kids. This is the most precious thing that you can achieve in your life, to have Muslim kids. So that's why when we are allowed to marry from Christians or Jews, there are conditions. First, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that Muslim men can marry Christian or Jewish women, but not the other way around. And there's another condition. By the way, the scholar differentiated between if you live in a majority Muslim country or in a minority Muslim country. So if you live in a majority Muslim country and you are a man marrying a Christian or Jewish woman, then the likelihood of your children being Muslim is higher, much higher. But keep in mind, as he said, your kids are gonna still be influenced by their mother. So you are committing a big mistake when you go and marry, a non-Muslim. So, most scholars say it is disliked, okay? But, if you wanna go ahead and do it, you have to do it in a majority Muslim country where your children have a lot of Islamic influence around them. Now, on the other hand, scholars said, if you do it in a minority Muslim country, okay, then it is very disliked, because most likely you're going to lose your kids completely. Okay, so this is the case here. If you are a Muslim here and you marry a non-Muslim woman, Christian or Jew, then most likely, you're going to lose your kids, because she has a strong influence on them. All the influence around them in school and work, is in non-Muslim, not Muslim or Muslim influence. And then by law, she can anytime tell you, I don't want you, you go away, I'm going to keep the kids. By law, she can do that. So you are putting yourself in a very difficult situation. And scholars say, some of them said it's prohibited, some of them said it is very disliked. And that's why, men were allowed to marry non-Muslim women, and that's not the other way around, because most of the societies have, a male-dominated culture where most of the time the kids follow the religion of their father. But in any situation where it's not like that, it is not good at all. So it's not good either way, especially in our situation here in America.
So in summary, neither can here, right?
Yeah.
Brothers, sisters, the ayat that was recited at the beginning, I just want to say a quick word about. As you can hear, this is from Surah Al-Baqarah. We hear the beautiful recitation, Brother Hamza, and the translation of As-Saban. You can see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started many ayat, yas'alunaka. So that's what the Prophet was, a teacher, and people were asking a questions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was answering to the questions of the people who are asking Prophet Muhammad. But the bottom line, the verse I want to mention is the fact that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعَسَى أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَى أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌّ لَكُمْ. There's always we have this limited knowledge usually about things. Only Allah knows about. Allahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun means many times what we like is not the right thing. That's how simple it is. That's why they went to the Prophet ﷺ and asked him questions, because they could not foresee. Like, the example we were talking about now, as a young man, he sees this beautiful young woman and will only think about one thing. So he goes and I talked to him because I have to deal with this situation many times. I have these brothers coming and complaining a year or two, why didn't you stop us? Why didn't you say something about us? Well, you didn't give us any chance. But now you discover after a year or two, now it's not about just, your dreams. It's about kids and responsibility, and now your kids are lost, and she took the kids and they ran away with them, and now solved my problem and so and so. That's why the ulama, extracting from the meaning of the Quran, they tell you, okay, well, it's not allowed to marry from either, to marry a non-Muslim. You either a man or a woman in a non-Muslim country, you're not allowed. Because they realize this problem, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. He knows what's right and what's wrong. And you may like something that is wrong, bad for you. And if you believe in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know a lot more than you do, and He tells you the right thing, then you will have no problem, inshallah.
If Allah has a power to do anything, is it possible that He could appear in the form of a person on this earth? Brother Rami and Brother Sarfraz, 3 minutes each.
Yeah, some of the questions sometimes are put the wrong way. Like if I tell you, if you are really free, then why don't you practice your freedom and go kill somebody? If you are easygoing, why don't you answer me and take a bribe? Or answer the request of a girl who wants to be your girlfriend, or something like that. Things that are not compatible, not logic. So those questions, sometimes people put them in the wrong way, especially in Aqidah. And you have to keep in mind, in Aqidah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not like us. Some of the questions we can relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by applying them to our life. But some of the questions, we have to remember that we're talking about God. God is the one who is the creator, okay? And He's not like us. So for a God to present in a person, then that will create a lot of problems. Then He can say, okay, that body, is the body the God or the soul? And when the body dies, did the God die? And why God only presented in one body and did not present in another body? So people who, people especially people who ask this, usually Christian, because they say, God came down to this earth in the form of Jesus. And believe me, Christians themselves debated for 600 years and split into Orthodox and Catholic because they never could make up their mind, what is the status of Jesus? Is His body God and His soul God, or the other way around? Things that are not understood. And what about the Hindu? They can say, if the body is God is capable, why doesn't He present to us in the form of a cow? You see, things that cannot be said about God. Okay? So, and then you ask them, tell them, all those prophets that came before Jesus, why none of them ever said anything about a man who is a God? None of the prophets who came before Jesus, none of them talked about a God who is a man. None of them said that, you can be forgiven through a man who was crucified. Can you imagine thousands of years prophet telling people about God without mentioning Jesus, if that was true? It's all something that happened after Jesus when people exaggerated and changed their religion. And then they come up with those problematic questions. And, so God has his characteristics that are not like us. So we cannot say, like for example, who created God? Because we know that God is the first one to exist and then He created after that. And if you keep saying in your mind, who created God? A God before Him created Him. A God before the number one created number two. But at the end you have to say, there is a first one who started the whole thing. And that is Allah. That is Allah.
So I think Brother Rami has covered, but let me say something here. As a rule, Allah can do everything. Anything and everything, we understand that. But looking at Rabbul Alameen this way, that may not be correct. And I'm clearly not criticizing this question. That's a brilliant question. I'm sure that came to someone's mind. Allah has created everything, but that never happened before. And even from the beginning, starting from the time of Adam alayhi salam and went on, even Allah never sent angels as prophets. So prophets came as human beings. So that's a precedence. And that went on, and of course that never happened. That's never going to happen in the time, because even if you read Surah Ma'idah, it's clearly said the meanings are, we have completed your religion. So even you had that thought, which may be right 600, 800, million years ago, that question is gone. So just to simplify, no, it never happened, it will never happen.
And by the way, some people can say also, similar question. If God is capable of everything, can He cause Himself to die? For example, I mean, like, questions that just, they contradict themselves. So those questions are endless, but the question has to be logic to start with. Because if I tell you, if you are free, why don't you kill yourself? What kind of question is that? So the question has to be logic.
Teenagers feel awkward doing wudu at a school in front of their peers. Can you give any advice regarding this issue, Brother Hassan and Sister Wafa? 3 minutes each.
Well, when I was in high school, I just went and I talked to the counselor, and like I wanted to pray Dhuhr in obviously in school. They let me leave 6th period a little bit early, and I was able to go to the bathroom. I was able to do my wudu, and I was able. They even gave me a room to pray in. So I think honestly, a lot of times, and I knew this within even some of my other friends, a lot of times the Muslim youth, you're afraid to ask for a lot of things. And if you just ask in this world, you can get whatever you want. So, I mean, there's ways of circumventing these issues that you're having pretty easily, actually. And all you have to do is go ask. If you don't know who to ask, I asked the counselor, and that worked for me. But, you know, I mean, even this issue that, I mean, it's a good question, don't get me wrong, but you're talking about you're going to feel awkward for the rest of your life. I mean, I'm 24 years old, I still feel awkward. We don't belong in this, you know, I mean, we belong in this country, don't get me wrong, but we're different, and we'll always be different. So, you know, I mean, this whole awkward feeling, I'd say get used to it, but I mean, you know, there is ways of circumventing things and making it less awkward for you if that's
To help with the awkwardness too, I just want to just say something. Those of you who know me, I really don't apologize for coming off a little mean sometimes. But like when I was going to high school, I wasn't allowed to pray at school. Like I had to literally hide. I'd have to make wudu and hide and go play under the bleachers by the football field. And if anybody knows anything about Kentucky, the weather is very much like Indiana. So it was brutally painful to make my salah sometimes. But I made no apologies the day I got caught. Why is she sneaking off? Why is she making her prayer? I would go during lunch. And I never made an apology for that. I just want to bring one point up to the teenagers in this room and to everybody. Does anyone ever apologize to you or feel awkward when they come straight to your face and call you a name? Based on your religion or based on where you're from? They make no apologies. They put their opinion right out there. You should not make any apologies for who you are. We are Muslim. We have to make wudu. Sure, it might be a little awkward that I'm sitting there washing my mouth and my nose. And my students have seen me do this right after school. I go and make my salat al-dhuhr. The youth who come to my room they know this. What are you doing, Ms. Safi? Jannah money, I just got the opportunity to give some dawah. So please take a look at it, that awkward feeling. Take the opportunity to switch that kind of mindset to where I'm not going to make apologies for who I am. This is who I am. And you're my friend, so it shouldn't make any difference how you feel about it. Take it always as an opportunity to do dawah. Because that always question is going to be in the back of their head, why do they do that? Why are they doing that? And don't be apologetic, because no one else is apologetic to you for the way that their opinions come out, or the way that they treat you sometimes. So inshallah, and it is awkward, I won't say no. It was awkward for me, like when I first got caught, because I was doing something good, making my salah, I was feeling kind of awkward at first, but when I asked for permission, they would not allow me to make salah. They wouldn't even give me a room, it was a huge building. There were plenty of places I could pray. You guys are very lucky today. You have rights. And one of those rights is your religious rights. And they have to give you that, inshallah. And if they don't, call some of us. We'll take care of it for you. We'll help you. Because that is your right. Tell your parents. Don't be afraid to ask for your rights. And if anything, they will respect you even more for requesting those rights.
Next one. Almost all of us follow the religion we are born into and consider it to be true. Why should we then consider it any more important than the language we speak? We don't pick either of them and get them purely by chance. Brother